Okay, guys, so we're going to try again. I'm just going to try and get Joe up on the live feed. So just bear with me 2 seconds, guys. Just going to find Joe. Just waiting for them to hit it up. If not, guys, what I'll do is I'll just go into the sort of there he is. Is he on? He's coming. He's coming. He's connecting. Joe Delaney! Yes!
Can you hear me?
I can hear you. Okay, Joe, so let's just go straight into it. I think as our audience know us sort of quite well, I think we can sort of bypass the formalities here and just get straight to the point, if that's okay with you.
No problem, mate. No problem.
Okay, so what we're going to talk about today is alcoholism. You know, what we can do, how we can help. So how did this all start off? Okay, so it started off with this broadcast being me and Joe have got a little bit of a past with being an alcoholic, being within alcoholism, and that is definitely not the reason why I've asked you to come today, Joe. You know, I think as I've been watching your progress on social media, I'm sort of relating with your sort of spiritual awakening, if you like. You know, and I love you to bits, mate. So I'm glad you've turned up. Thanks very much.
Pleasure.
So I'm just going to start with one thing, and I think it's just to. I think what a lot of people see as an alcoholic is someone that's on the street corner, drinking every single day, and they may be going out once or twice a week. And I want to sort of bridge the gap between what an actual alcoholic is. So alcohol to me is a drug, okay? Ethanol is an active drug, an active psychoactive drug. Would you agree with me on that, Joe? Yeah?
Certainly. It does change one's mind, certainly.
Yeah. So sort of why do we hit it so readily then? Why is it associated with celebrations, with mourning, with stress? We are basically poisoning our body as a reward, you know, or a distress to life, you know. And in my eyes, it doesn't matter whether or not you're functioning, you're going, you know, you're having one. You know, you're going out on the weekend and absolutely smashing it. You know, whether or not you go to work and you're still being a parent, you are still an alcoholic if you have to go out every single weekend and get drunk. You know, you are still an alcoholic if you are just having a drink once or twice in the week. It doesn't matter or not whether or not you're sitting down and you're having a drink every single night. Maybe the physiology is going to change because of the, you know, how toxic it is to the system. But you needing to have a drink once or twice a week to needing to have a drink every single day, in my eyes, is exactly the same.
That's how I used to think.
Yeah.
Until it sort of got hold of me, and I think an alcoholic is really somebody who, even though they say they'll stop drinking or moderate, can't. You know, something overpowers them. And I'll talk about me. All I can do is talk about my experience, my strength, and my hope. What's happened to me, really.
Yeah.
Because we're all individuals. You know, it might happen differently for different people. But the reason I drank now is because I was emotionally insecure. I was full of fear, full of guilt, full of shame, full of pride, full of arrogance, full of shit, basically, you know, pretending not to be. No,
Yep.
I mean, you know, not only, I try and talk less shit than I used to and take no shit. You know, but, Jay, to be honest with you, I thought I knew about myself. And the truth about it was I didn't have a clue, mate. I knew lots and lots and lots about other people, who was doing what with who. I was very, very knowledgeable in the field that I was working in, which was biomedical sciences. So I was very sort of left-brained, very linear, very closed-minded. You know, I used to think that I was open-minded, but I realize now that I was broad-minded. That's a completely different thing, you know. And what actually happened to me was I got into situations where more and more pressure and stress was put on me. And I couldn't handle it, mate. Emotionally, I couldn't handle it. Yep. So what I used to do is I found that if I had a few drinks, it would change the way that I felt. And this is just me talking now. And you know, some people may think I'm talking nonsense, but I'm just relating it to what I've found out about myself, you know. And I realized that if I drank a certain amount, I felt better. So it changed my emotional state or my mood state. And when I was in that change state, I used to think in a different way. And initially, when I first started drinking, if there was something coming up that would cause any pressure on me, a couple of drinks would help to calm me down emotionally. So to me, it didn't actually work on my thinking to start with. It worked on my emotional state. And my belief is, or no, it's not my belief. I know quite clearly from what I see and from what I've been through myself, that most of the world is in emotional denial. We deny our emotional state and we pretend, right, that we're not actually feeling all this negativity, all this guilt, all this shame, all this remorse. To me, it was all about repression and suppression of emotions and living the life of an imposter and pretending. I was like a great imposter, you know. I would look at your face, I would see it change, I would change me then to try and suit you. I don't do that anymore, mate.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know? And so I took drink because it gave me the Dutch courage, right, to pretend more. How does that sound so far?
It sounds exactly how I used to be, Joe, to be honest. And just touching base on what you've just said there, and touching a little bit of science so our audience understand. From what I know, ethanol, it basically impairs the communication between neurons. And it damages the membranes between those neurons. So in essence, the signals, they're not normal, and the associations with life then don't emerge readily. So basically what that means is we're living more in the now and less in the mind. So you tend to do more in the now and don't think, you know, I don't know if that's how you sort of see it. I find that we sort of suppress, you know, what's going on, you know, our mind, what we're thinking, and we just live in the now and we think it's great at the time. And I think that's how I was living when I left the military at first. And as we've spoke about in other interviews, you know, I was homeless at the time. I'd put all my money into academics. You know, and I was drinking as if I needed a break from the world. You know, I was drinking again for courage to go out because I was obviously homeless, and then going out and drinking. And I just found that the more intelligent I thought I was becoming as well, the less I was willing to admit I had a problem. And that was one of the biggest things with me. I was very narcissistic at the time, and I was like, don't you tell me what to do. I'm helping people. I know what I'm fucking doing. Don't you tell me. I know I'm dealing with people who have got this issue. And I was, you know, I was just less willing to hold my hands up and go, I've got a problem. I need to stop. You know, and that's what I found. It was a disassociation with the world. It was a way to escape. To give me courage to, you know, because at the time I was a very sort of timid boy. But again, as I thought I was progressing in life and becoming more intelligent and my life skills were a little bit more hardened and I was hanging around, you know, with a more cooler sort of circle, I was just not willing to admit that I had an issue. Like you say, I was chatting a lot of shit at the time. And I think that was a real issue with me at first. But again, going back to what you said, I feel as if, you know, ethanol sort of, it sort of doesn't make you understand what's going on in the now. It's an escape. Okay.
That's exactly what it is, mate. That's exactly what it is. It's a chemical escape mechanism. Frozen. Are you back again?
You still there, Joey?
Yeah, still here, mate.
Okay.
What I found was that alcohol, or ethanol as you call it, was an escape mechanism. It was a chemical means by which my mind was changed and made me think in a different way. And how it works is it just basically closes down half of you, right? And allows you to act in this egomaniacal way, egocentric, narcissistic way, really. But what happened to me is I became an expert at making excuses, ducking and diving and dodging and weaving, you know. And
hold my hand up to that, Joe.
If only the world would behave in the way that I thought it should, then I'd feel a lot better. And as a consequence, I used to control people, or try to control people outside of me when they weren't behaving in the way that I thought they should. I tried to do it with my children. I tried to do it in work. I was very, very persuasive, and I was a brilliant master of using emotional blackmail on people, you know. And if people didn't listen to the words I was using, I could become physically aggressive, and I would frighten people physically, you know. And you know, I've owned up now. I've admitted, or as far as I know, I've cleaned completely my side of the street. I'm an open book. I will tell and discuss my past with anybody whatsoever if I feel it's the correct time and the correct place. I don't walk around with an open book and say, look who I was and all that, because I've learned that, you know, opening up in appropriate places is the thing to do, you know. And just to go back, alcohol is disinhibitory. What it does is it stops the brain from laying down memories. That's why people can't forget a lot of things when they've had a lot to drink. So it just allows them to lead a one-track way of life. And we don't have any, it's all about short-termism. And I understand all the stuff now to do with spirituality and living in the moment and living in presence. That's all about a wider and an expanded vision of how the world is. But alcohol gives you the impression that you're in that state. But what happens is when the levels of alcohol or other chemicals that change your mind, when they go down, then the old self comes back in, the ego self. And then you're left again with either take more substance or start to grow up emotionally. Some people probably won't like to hear what I'm saying here, but I'm only talking about what I've learned about myself, you know.
Well, let's just discuss, fantastic. Let's just move straight in then. And, you know, for those that may be, you know, suppressing it or don't really know if they have an issue. My experience where I knew, you know, at a younger age where I was having a problem. Let's talk about what is an alcoholic. Now, the way I figured out I had a problem was, you know, alcohol is usually out the system between 36 and 48 hours. And I always needed that drink 36 to 48 hours after, you know, last being pissed up. And I started to do this thing, Joe, where I'd have a drink and I'd go, oh. And I realized, you know, that was me complying to the drug ethanol. That was my brain needing that ethanol. And once I got it, I got that euphoria, that, oh, you know, and just because I was drinking once, twice, 3 times a week, I thought, you know, because everyone around me was doing it, you know, they were all in the same boat. Thousands, hundreds of thousands of people were doing the same thing. Oh, it wasn't until I was going through the science side of things, I was like, well, actually, that's my drug complying with, that's my brain complying with ethanol. And when I took the second sip, it wasn't the same. And when I took the third and the fourth, I didn't get that euphoria. And then the more I drank, the more intoxicating it became. And then the more damaging it was to my physiology then, you know, and then I'd feel crap and anxious, and I could feel the damage to my body. I was foggy and jaded. And then 36 to 48 hours later, I want to go back out for a drink, you know, and it was just this cycle that, how do I get out of it? Like, why do I need it? Why am I going out to do it? You know, but there was that many people around me because I was living in Liverpool at the time. It was just the norm. So the question is, Joe, like, what is an alcoholic? What is it? What is classified as an alcoholic?
In my view, an alcoholic is somebody who, even though they really know that they need to stop drinking, and even though they try with all their willpower and realize it's destructive, even though they know if they carry on that it will kill them and it will destroy their life and the lives of others, even when they know all that, can't stop drinking. So this is not about willpower, right? And this is about finding out that no human power can relieve people of alcoholism. Now, before people, you know, wonder about what I'm going to say now, is I think this is all part of what humans are going through at the moment. More and more people are actually becoming more and more anxious, more and more afraid, more and more insecure, and they're turning to alcohol and other chemical substances, right, to try and alleviate their emotional feelings. Okay, but to go on to the, you know, no human power, people don't understand, in my view now, because I can see this clearly, what entails humanity, what is a human being. And I think that there's a half of us are sort of a mind body thing, but there's something much deeper. And for want of a better word, Jay, I'm going to call it the soul, mate. So
Okay.
alcoholism is a soul sickness. Now, the old word for soul from the Greek is psyche. So psychology, right, the true understanding of psychology is that there's a much, much deeper part of us that's connected with something outside and inside of ourselves. I know this is a bit weird. You know?
No,
Now,
I'm with you, Joe.
Some people might call that spirit. Some people may call it God, you know. And now I'm not a religious person. I was brought up in a very, very strict Roman Catholic environment. And I do believe what all the major religions of the world are talking about is the same thing. It's a deep sense of purpose, of care, of compassion. I think through various means, we've been misdirected away from that and misguided through our education system, through fear, through all sorts of different reasons. And that doesn't matter. But to help people to find the solution to their addictive behavior, they don't need to look, this is my opinion again, they don't need to look outwards. They just need to look from their nose just down there into their heart of hearts, mate. And that's what's happened to me. And as I say, I'm not religious at all, but I do believe that there's a space deep within inside of us, and we contact it through our heart of hearts that is much more intelligent than we are. You know, you mentioned, you know, the more intelligence that you got. Well, I'd like to say the more intellectual became, right, the more your intelligence diminished. Do you see what I mean? There's a different thing there, because one's about knowledge and one's about wisdom. And what I do now is, Jay, and I've said this to you before in our previous interviews, you know, every morning now I wake up and I tap my heart and I connect with something deep inside myself, right? And I say to this feeling, there's no picture. I just say, what's on the cards today? Please guide me and please show me the correct actions to take today so that I remain healthy, clear-minded and emotionally calm, right? That has basically saved my life, Jay, because you know I left alcoholism at the point of death. You know, I took a massive overdose, right? And something stopped me, something turned me round and basically helped me to understand that there's more to a human being than people realize, you know. And when I say human being, I think that's exactly what it is. There's a human part of us and there's a being part of us. Now, I'll shut up in a second, but this actually relates to much, much deeper psychology, Jungian psychology, right? But also the understanding of the unconscious mind, the understanding of the shadow characteristics of the human that keep us from being our full potential, all these things. But Maslow, most people have heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? He explained this because he felt that people at a certain stage in their life came to what he described as a rock bottom, where they came to the end of their thinking, they were utterly fed up with life, and they couldn't see a way out of it. I think that that's the point where humanity's coming to now generally, and most people are running to the GPs, not that there's anything wrong with the GPs, but they're taking all sorts of medications that suppress their emotions, and I feel that that's not really helping as many people as it could. I think that if we help people to get back into their hearts and to listen to the heart intelligence that's there, then they've got a much, much better chance of turning this around. I feel like a preacher today, because, you know, sometimes I'm like a joker and sometimes I'm like the most serious.
I think though, Joe, I think, you know, I mean, I'm on the same frequency as you here. I mean, there was the turning point in my life where, you know, this whole law of attraction and manifesting your reality. I was doing this when I was a kid, you know, and it wasn't until I started reading about it and learning about the subconscious and, you know, the frequencies and vibrations around me. You know, it sounds like when you're preaching it, it sounds weird, and I get that because I do it all the time. I started using, what got me out of, you know, stopping drinking was soul cards, a bit like tarot, you know, and just doing one a day. As stupid and as pretentious as it sounded at the time, to me, it worked. You know, I felt like I was in tune with me, with my soul. I think what you're saying sounds, you know, where we're saying it sounds weird to the audience. I honestly believe, Joe, that globally there's like this awakening now anyway, where people are really getting into tune with, you know, with their soul, with their heart, with the, you know, the reality. You know, they manifest things and frequencies and energy through the body. As weird as it sounds and it's being preachy, I think people are really starting to get in tune with this now. And I personally will come to this again later on down the broadcast. I think, you know, the way we're dealing with those that are suffering with alcoholism is because we are going down the scientific route and the, you know, the pharmaceuticals, and sending them off to, you know, counseling from someone that doesn't understand what being an alcoholic is, trying to give you the tools to overcome it, you know, when really what we should be doing is helping those tap into their, you know, their inner soul, if you will. If that makes sense.
Perfect sense, mate. I mean, that's what it's all about. You see, all my life was about looking outwards for the answers. It was looking to experts. It was looking to me mum, to me dad, to the teachers, for experts to try and help me to understand why I felt so terrible on the inside all of my life. I never felt like I fitted in. I know lots of people say this, but I really didn't. You know, I felt like I was out of my body. I was completely and utterly spacey all the time. I was afraid, all these sort of things. And I met a bunch of people eventually who'd been through this process, had turned backwards, and their motto was, "To thine own self be true." And you see, Jay, I thought I was living a life, right, that was based on my thoughts and my emotions. And I realized that was the pretentiousness of it all. I always felt like an imposter. And that's because I was an imposter, because I'd been programmed into other people's beliefs, other people's ideas on how I should live, right? And I nearly got to the point of my own suicide, right, to realize that I didn't have a mind of my own. You know, I needed to jettison all these ideas, all these emotions, all these attitudes, because they weren't me. They were just recordings in my ego mind that were actually motivating me, and they didn't fit who I really was. You know, I mean, this is deep, this, but people will understand this. You know, they'll understand it because I'm talking directly from my heart here. I'm not making anything up. This has actually happened to me. It was my head that talked me out of the solution all the time. This, to me, is the seat of stinking thinking. This here is the solution, you know. So if we go out to try and gain more knowledge, I think it blocks us further. There's a phrase that says, you know, often intellect thwarts intuition. And what that means is the more your head's full of shit, the less you can hear what your heart's trying to say to you, you know. And my job now is not to give people, the only advice I would give anybody is, the answer's within your heart, right? Yeah. And people say to me, well, what should I do now? And they hate me because I said, I don't know. I hardly know what I've got to do myself. I have to live one breath at a time, you know, one day at a time. So I'm saying to you that if you practice what I'm practicing, hopefully it will work for you, you know. Here's the other thing. You need to be around people who don't give you all the theory and all, you know, you need to be with people who've been successful in recovering and practicing principles that work for them, mate, because this is a soul sickness. It's not an ego, it's not an intellectual sickness. I mean, that's part of it, but it's something much, much deeper. And I honestly believe there's a shift going on globally now. There's astronomical, astrological effects that are impacting upon the planet. It's actually impacted upon the planet, which is impacted upon individuals' minds. And if they haven't got the tools and the solutions, they're going to go off their heads very, very quickly. You know, my job and my mission is to say to people, I was there myself, right? These are the steps I've taken. Maybe if you take the same steps, it will work for you. Okay. I am a preacher. I can feel I'll do it in nomine Patris. Bless you, my boy.
Joe, I had, you know, I grew up in a, you know, my mother and father was really bad alcoholics, substance abuse, you know, and as tough as it was, I handled it really well. You know, I felt like I was dealing with it really well. As a young child, I had the tools and manifested the tools to deal with their shit. You know, and, you know, just going back to, you know, emotions and such, it wasn't until, you know, going through the academics with yourself, you know, and because I remember, you mentioned something to me at the end of, you know, at the pass out with me. And it was sort of like, fucking tone it down a bit, Jay, acting all successful. And we were at the, I forget where we were, but you turned around. I remember you saying to me, because I'd got a job, didn't I? I was recruited. I was getting really successful. The money started coming in and I was homeless at the time. And I remember you saying, fucking tone it down. And it was the success that moved me into you know, to drinking massive amounts. I moved on the Albert Dock. I had a big fucking apartment. I was getting thousands of pounds a week coming in. I was hanging around with multi-millionaires. And I already had the tools from going through what I did with my mother and father, but suppressed them because, you know, the success and the emotions that I gained, because I was a weak, you know, childish sort of timid guy. And then I was building up, but I was faking it with everyone. And where you said, you know, you were full of shit, you know, the whole success thing, the whole persona I was trying to give out, it was fake. And I couldn't do it without alcohol because it wasn't me, you know. And it wasn't until I was like, no, I'm done, you know. We moved away. I think we moved up to Wavertree then. We moved away. And then once I started to tap back into myself and I started to like look within myself, the tools were there. You know, I had more of an easier time than I think you did, Joe. But I think the point I'm trying to make is, again, you know, it is rather than trying to reach out and no one's helping me and where do I go? Just chill, just relax, just what are you feeling? How do you feel? Why is it you're drinking? And that's going to move into the next question here is, why is it such a big problem, Joe? In your eyes, why is alcoholism such a big problem? Why is alcohol abuse such a huge problem in society today?
Well, I think alcohol's so readily available and it's so cheap, you know, and you know, because it has this powerful effect on people's emotions and minds, you know, it changes the way they feel. All addictive behavior, you know, I'm sort of a neuroscientist really, so I can bring the science side of things in. You know, these are chemical methods to change the way we process emotions, and there are certain substances we can take, like stimulants, for example, and what they do is they change our emotional state that makes our mind, our conscious mind, work in a different way. So there's some substances you can take that actually slow time down or give the impression or the perception of time slowing down.
Yeah.
You know, there are other substances we can take that give the opposite impression. And that's what I was doing, you see, Jay. I was using external chemical substances to change the way that my mind was working. And for every now and then, I'd get it right. Do you know what I mean? I'd hit that sort of sweet spot, right? And I would convince myself that I'll just have a couple now and get back into that sweet spot where I can become a reasonably nice person, loving. I'll cut the grass. I'll do all sorts of proper things. I'll be a good dad. But as soon as I took that first drink, there's an expression, I took a drink and the drink took me. You know, that's because I had an idea before I drank that it was going to help me to feel better and therefore I'd behave better. But there's a thing about alcoholism that first drink, it sets up such a craving that you can't use any amount of willpower to stop you from taking the second one. You know, you can never, ever, ever guarantee where you're going to end up once that alcohol's past your lips. Now, Jay, I've got to say something here. There's a complete difference in my understanding between what an alcoholic is and what a heavy drinker is. A heavy drinker, if they fall in love, if they get another job, if they, you know, win a load of money and want to go around, they can stop drinking. It takes effort, but they can stop drinking because the material motivation to stop is sufficient for them to do that. And I know loads of people who've been heavy drinkers, you know, 8 to 10 pints a night or 3 bottles a night and all this sort of stuff, who can just stop like that. An alcoholic can't, mate. There's a complete difference between a heavy drinker and an alcoholic. Now, this is, again, it's my experience. And I've seen loads and loads of people who come into the fellowship that I belong to, and they talk the talk and all that sort of thing, but they still think that they can moderate their drinking. if you're an alcoholic, in my experience, you can't ever moderate drinking, you know. And the other thing is as well, you know, and some people, they stop drinking, but they go on to medication. Once again, my experience is that you've got to try and live life in the raw using your natural, innate pharmacy, right, in order to provide you with the chemicals that provide you with emotional calm and clear-mindedness. So there's an inner pharmacy that if you do it properly, and it's things like mindfulness meditation, Tai Chi, Qigong, Falun Gong, running, swimming, dancing, all positive things that work for you. You know, you have to find the thing that really makes you feel lit up and flowing, you know, and you know, and you know that, and I know that you try and help people with that, because people will come into you as a personal trainer, and there'll be certain bits that they're good at and certain bits that they're not good at, you know. If you focus on the strength things first, the things that they're good at, that then gives people the confidence to then deal with in time the things that they're not so good at or weak at.
Well, I found it more, you know, I was more of a heavy drinker, like quite a big heavy drinker at the time. And again, you know, I'll hold my hand up now, and you'll know yourself within the clinical and, you know, the sport and sort of the world. You know, I deal with a lot of sort of clinical and sport. It's hard dealing with the public. You know, when you're doing a 16-hour shift and you're coming home, it's just like, fuck! The first thing I'll go and do is grab a bottle of wine. And this is like Tuesday night, you know, and I'll get up and I'll function, and it's controlled. But I'll classify myself as a heavy drinker. Now, what I've found is when I'm dealing with, you know, with folks that are, you know, are alcoholics or heavy drinkers, as you put it, it wasn't the alcohol, Joe. It was the environment. There was something going on in their environment which needed to be fixed for them to let go of the alcohol. There was no point in me saying, don't fucking take the alcohol, take it out the house. If it's in the house, you're going to drink it, you know, all that bullshit. You know, it was things like the club lifestyle, the sex, work, stress, you know, all that stuff, music. You know, I was out the other day with my family, and we went to Baltic Market. You know, and I train quite a lot of the guys around there, and I go there and the music's going, I'm like, shit, I could do with a drink now. You know, and the moment you're placed in an environment that you need to drink, it becomes so overpowering. It's very hard to not take that drink. And I find, you know, the big problem with why we're not rehabilitating, you know, heavy drinkers or alcoholics is because we're trying to deal with the branches, if you will, of a tree instead of the trunk. And the trunk is 9 times out of 10, it's the environment. There's something going on in the environment, whether that be the people, whether that just be the environment or their scene. It's that which stimulates the drink. And if they can let go of that environment, if they can just move to something else, like you say, have a better circle, have a better environment, find something, Qigong, you know, Kung Fu for me, whatever it is, how stupid it may sound at the time, you know, if you just go down that route, it'll help. And one for me was, I used to write messages on my mirror in a marker, you know, you're going to have a great day. You know, I read this book, you know, as I was learning about what I was feeling, and every single day I used to do it. And that thing used to keep me away from the environments I would usually go to that would then entice me to want to drink. So I feel the big issue is 9 times out of 10, it's the environment. Yes, there is an addiction aspect where you could just be at home and want to drink, but maybe then that's the problem. Maybe being home alone and not dealing with your inner emotions. Get the fuck out, start speaking to people, meet people, you know. You know?
I don't agree with what you've just said.
Okay. Okay.
Okay. Because that was the excuse, you see, that I used all the time. So if you work it out, and obviously we need to be sensible about this, then there's an inside and an outside component. But the point about it is, it's our reactions, it's our emotional reactions to the environment that we're in that cause the disturbance. Okay, so it doesn't matter. So what I'm trying to say is, if you're in an environment, we are dealing here with instincts. We're dealing with the instinct for personal security. We're dealing with the instinct for sex, for society, and for self-esteem. These are powerful innate instincts within us, right? And what happens is, in certain environmental conditions, we will feel threatened, whether we know it consciously or not. We will feel emotionally disturbed. If you don't know that you're 100% responsible for your emotional reactions, then you will always blame something. Jay, this is dead important. 100% responsible for your emotional reactions to life. It's called growing up, mate, right? And this is what people don't want to hear, honestly, mate. You know, you can call this transactional analysis, you can call it psychotherapy, you can call it what you like. But if you're feeling disturbed, it means at some level of your being, you've determined that some threat is happening to you, whether it be a threat of physical violence, whether it be a threat that somebody's going to steal your partner, you know, whether it's a threat that you're going to look stupid in society, whether it's a threat that you feel an idiot with yourself. All those things are powerful instincts designed for our protection, but which have overpowered themselves and direct us towards taking a drink. You see, it's, if people can only get this, that this is about finding a way that's more powerful than human instincts for defense, then we'll be getting a much further along than we are already. And how do you do it? You have to do it by turning your eyes and your glasses the other way around and looking deep in you and identifying virtually every single moment of the day where you feel threatened. Jay, it's called fear, mate. It's called fear. You know, and we're adult people now with basically, most people I work with are the adults, both consciously and physically, but there's an emotional child in there that's still hiding and grabbing onto its mum's apron strings or hiding behind the table or whatever. It's that one that we have to go in now, and we have to go in, bring it up and help it to grow up with support, you know.
Yeah.
There we are. Bless you. I should be in a pulpit, me. I sound good here. I hope this is being recorded. This is good.
Now, moving into the you know, the biggest sort of aspect of what we're talking about now is what can be done. Now, we've spoken about, you know, and we've both agreed on that, you know, looking within is a big part of growth and on helping out in terms of, you know, getting through alcoholism or heavy drinking. But what's out there, Joe? Now, I know there's a big community base, which I'm in touch with, that I help, you know, guys out with and clients that I have. You know, I think the first thing you need to do if you're really suffering is you have to reach out to someone. You know, you've got to reach out to family, friends, me and you, you know, whoever it is that you're going to feel comfortable reaching out. But you have to connect with someone. You know, you have to reach out with someone to and let it go, because like you've said, we're full of shit, and it doesn't matter how intelligent or intellectual you are. When you're on your own in your mind, sometimes you will always make up excuses. Yeah, no, I've got a problem, but you know, I've been working hard. You've got to connect with someone that will say what you've just said. Fuck off. You know, you're a grown ass man. You've got an issue. You need to own that issue. You've got it. You know, you've got a problem. So I think, you know, that community, whatever, whether it's somewhere that you go, whether it's friends, whether it's family, you know, it doesn't matter who it is, but just letting it go, letting it out into the open and to materialize. That's the biggest key aspect to moving forward, I feel, in terms of rehabilitation.
No, I agree, mate. And I think I might be coming across here as very hard, but sometimes we have to be very, very gentle with the child as well and understand that, you know, and different people's characteristics or childlike characteristics, we need to become aware of what they're like. So this is all about regaining reconnection to that basically frightened child. And it's also then to feel our way deeply as to how we go forward. And sometimes there needs to be a sort of a stern type response, and sometimes there needs to be a gentle response. It can't all be, you see, I mean, it's very difficult. I found that what I needed really was less emotional support, because I loved it when people showed me emotional support. I'd like to be like a psychic vampire, and I'd grab onto them, you know, and I wouldn't let them go, you see. So, you know, they say that alcoholics, they don't form relationships. They take prisoners, you know, and that's what I was like. I was always looking for the person that would fix me because they loved me even more, and this, that, and the other, you know. And in the end, this is all about self-care, self-love, you know, and reconnecting with the source of your true being, your essential self. Jay, I didn't realize when people were saying you need to be yourself, I thought that was my ego self, and I needed to carry on and with like the showman, but really, there's something deep underneath all that there, that is the true imposter free zone, and I don't know whether these words will be helping people, but I'm happy with who I am today. I'm really happy. There's lots of things about me that I'm trying to improve, but slowly but surely I'm getting better, and I've got a more deeper sense of what it's all about, and so there's no doubt about it that in my recovery, physical exercise has helped me a lot. I do a lot of running.
Well, I was going to say, I think we both meditate. We both read the sort of holistic side of things to improve our knowledge of the unknown, if you will. So I think it doesn't matter what it is that you pick holistically, whether it be meditation, listening to transcending sort of music, whatever it is, you've got to just go out and try it. I think the holistic part plays a vital role. I meditate quite frequently, which helps me massively in terms of staying in tune with myself. But there's one thing that you've just said there, Joe, which is a big thing for me. And in normal society, this shows up as narcissistic. And do you know what? I am probably quite a narcissistic dude, but I think loving yourself, truly loving who you are, like I truly love who I am and what I do. There's nothing more I want or need from how I feel now or what I do. If there was a heaven and God said, right, come up to heaven, I'd be like, there's nothing you can offer me that's better than what I'm doing now. There's nothing better. I love it. I think you've truly got to love yourself. Once you hit that sort of state where you truly love who you are and what you're doing, I think that's a transcendence. I think that's an awakening in yourself. And that can only come from trying new things, tapping into meditation, reading into these things. So again, one of the things you said there, loving yourself, I think that's a big thing in terms of rehabilitation. You have to come to the terms of that. You love who you are.
You said a nice word there, mate, transcending, and I think what's happened is, many people, including myself, I transcended to a different level of understanding, but I transcended and pushed away the stuff that I didn't like. You see what I mean? And you've got to transcend and include all those shadow characteristics, all those things. It's part of this, what they call the hero's journey that people talk about, And, I know that, I've got a small piece of this puzzle, and by sharing right from my heart, hopefully that will then resonate. And just let me talk about resonation or resonance and vibration and frequencies. Nikola Tesla said, once you get in touch with understanding vibration, resonance, frequencies and energy, once you start to understand that everything is vibrating, that we're all part of this, that includes us as human beings as well. Absolutely. Once you tap in and turn around and get an understanding of your own individual resonant frequency, that's the real you. Once you can touch that, tune in finer and finer, then you get stronger and stronger. The joy comes, the peace of mind comes, because eventually you will become totally free of any outside interferences. And I honestly think, and I know this is a bit heavy, it might sound heavy, but the closer you are to that source vibration of your independence and individuality, the more healthy you become. Whether you're being bombarded by 5G waves, invisible waves, chemtrails, all that sort of thing, the closer that you get to source and becoming source, right, the more healthy you become, and healthy and holistic is the same to me, then the more chance of we've got surviving really what's going on globally. We get stronger. We meet people like ourselves who can form groups to spread the message to others. I feel like Saint Joseph now, But
Joe, I love it when you talk dirty to me.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, by saying this, I could well be back on the way to the psychiatric department, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
I've never felt more strong and more secure in all my life. Have I got it right? No, I haven't got it right. There's always room for improvement. It's about progress and not perfection. And that's where I'm up to, mate, you know, and I don't go around pointing things to people. You need to do this, you need to do that. You've got to come to your own conclusion on things, you know. So by me sharing as honestly as I can from my heart, I hope this does have some impact and maybe sows a seed in people that if you're really addicted to something, whether it be a chemical, whether it be gambling, whether it be sex, anything you're addicted to, if your mind is constantly, right, thinking about this substance and you try and stop it, but you can't get it out of your mind, that's part
I
of
agree
this
with you.
addictive thing, you know. So if you've not been freed from it, then you're not free of it.
But
you know
again,
I mean?
Joe, just to get in touch with everyone in the audience, you said that, you know, it may not be working, you know, have I got it right? You don't know. I mean, I believe in solipsism. You know, I believe that everything that's happening is in my mind. You know, I believe that what we're doing now isn't really real. It's I'm creating it in my mind. Is that true? It may not be true, but it works for me. You know, and that's what I'm trying to get across. Whether or not you believe in what I believe, it doesn't matter. It works for me. If you want to, whatever type of holistic or, you know, spiritual or scientific, you know, rehab, if you will, that you want to tap into, as long as it works for you, that's all that matters. It doesn't have to make sense to anyone else. But if it works for you, if you progress, if you transcend, if you become more spiritual or more grounded, you know, a lot of people will give you lots of different advice when you're suffering. You need to pick what you want to do, pick one thing, and that's a fixed point for you. And if it's not working, pick another fixed point. Exactly. And then pick another fixed point until you find out. You know, we're talking as experienced individuals now that have gone through some shit. But, Joe, it took me close to 10 years to be fixed now, to be totally in love with what I do and be totally, like, you know, empowered. It's taken a long time and many mistakes to get to where I am now. And it will, you know, if you're watching now and you are going through some suffering and you're trying to find that fixed point, it doesn't matter what point you fixate on. Just try it out. If it doesn't work, change, because eventually you're going to find something that, you know, resonates with you. It's on, like you said, it's on your frequency and you're tapped into that, and, you know, you understand it on a grounded level. So fucking what if someone says that you're psychotic and it doesn't work for you? Who gives a shit? You know, are you happier fixed on that point? Yes. Have you left all that sort of disease and toxin behind? Yes. Okay, so it works for you. You know, they are not you. You know, you are you. And what you'll find is once you're on that fixed point, you're going to resonate with people that are on your type of frequency. So your circle will change. And then once you're around people that really do, that are in tune with you, oh, life just gets so much better. You know, and where you said, that's when all that toxin leaves your mind then, because you start talking and sort of being around people that don't think that way, you know, they're on your level. So those negative thoughts start to leave, you know, because everything that's coming in and going out is resonating with, you know, with how you're feeling now, you know, that fixed point. And I think, you know, again, that's what I want to say. There isn't a specific way that's going to rehabilitate you or progress you. You have to look in and just go out and try anything, and eventually you're going to resonate with something. You know,
I agree, mate. I mean, everything you've said there, I agree. That individuals, most people are lost souls like I was. And I thought I knew what I was talking about, right? But I realize now that I didn't have a clue. And I know that I'm just one drink away from being a drunk. So in the way I work things now, I've been given a discipline, and it is hard work, this. It's like untying all the knots that I've tangled myself up in, you know. But I'm just one drink away from being a drunk. So I live one day at a time as best I can, you know, and I try and tune into my heart and my soul and be guided by that. I mean, I don't exactly understand fully what this means, right?
Yeah.
But I know what it feels like, you see, because my head's always trying to talk me out of it. I was brilliant, right, at making excuses for drinking. And once somebody said to me once, there's 1,000 different excuses, Joe, but there's not one good reason why you should carry on. And I see that in lots of people, that people make excuse after excuse after excuse, like I did. but there's no excuse for self-destructive behavior. And this is about education, but it's about education that comes from heart intelligence, not some clever trick up here, you know what I mean? So I'm not putting myself on any pedestal here because, you know, and I'm not a representative for any fellowship as such. I'm just saying this is what I'm learning. I learn more and more each day. I feel stronger and stronger. And sometimes do I go backwards too, right? I've found the last 6 months particularly difficult, you know,
Yeah.
but I've been given a set of tools, right? And I try and apply those tools every day. And
Exactly.
I haven't had a drink, and I haven't needed or wanted a drink or any other substance. I'm living life in the raw now. It's what I call, or what my friend Todd Medina calls, a rawsome, authentic life. I don't take any chemical substances at all unless I need to. Am I against medicine? Of course I'm not. Everything's got to work together. Medicine and pharmacological agents are important if they're used in the right amount at the right time for the right condition, you know. And I do see, you know, that medicine and non-medical interventions must work together in this both and approach. It's a mixed method, right, where the people need to help themselves and medicine needs to help them in the correct way as well.
Well, I'm glad you've said that. So to sort of wrap this up now, Joe, and there's
Why
one
am I going
thing.
on?
No. There's just something that you said there, which was the last thing I wanted to touch base on was we spoke about this before. Anthony Hopkins, I was watching an interview with him who was you know, really struggling, and he said, you know, that the whole world was built on intoxication. You know, everyone is pissed all the time, and most of success comes from, you know, having drink and being intoxicated. And a lot of people, you know, that are suffering that aren't quite, you know, holding the hand up and going, yeah, you know, I've got an issue. Does alcohol have, what's the word I'm trying to look for? Does it have its place? Does it have its place, you know, in certain circumstances? You know, is there times where having a little bit of a drink just to help you out, is that okay? You know, because some people, you know, I do it myself. I mean, every interview we've done, and if you go onto all my blogs, we're quite, you know, public figures in terms of we're on, you know, we're on the feeds quite a lot. And 9 times out of 10, if I'm doing big broadcasts, I've got a glass of wine with me, you know, because I'm nervous and I need it. I've done it with you. We were talking about alcoholism. I was sitting there with a glass of Chablis, you know, but it works for me, you know. So a lot of people are going to say, yeah, but now and then I need it. Does it have its place? And is it wrong? We're putting a negative spin on it, you know. Is it wrong to have a drink? Does it have its place in certain circumstances?
For most normal folks, drinking, it helps them to relax.
Yeah.
It helps them to lighten the mood. It has a positive and beneficial effect for most normal folks. For alcoholics, it's definitely, there's no such thing as moderation. As far as I'm concerned, and from my own experience, alcoholics will always be alcoholics because it's a soul sickness. It's not something that science has found an answer to, because science is human, right? And a soul sickness needs a spiritual solution. And the spiritual solution can only come from the soul, you know. And so the answer is yes. For the majority of people on the planet, in moderation, alcohol works very well for them, and good luck to them. But for alcoholics of my type, right, no. And that's why I'm careful. I'm not anal about it, but I'm careful about the food I eat, what I drink and stuff like that, you know. So it's a bit like having a physical allergy. If I've got an allergy to peanuts or strawberries, it would be bloody stupid of me to have a half a strawberry to see that everything was okay now, you know. So I've tried to moderate my drinking over time, and it's ended up with me being locked up, trying to kill myself, trying to kill other people, you know. So, Jay, I'm all right, one day at a time. If I don't touch any alcohol, everything else can be sorted out. So the most important thing in my life before everything else is my sobriety. And just to say that, you know, Jay, this is what I've learned is I'm a spirit on a human journey. I can't grow in spirituality. I'm already fully a spirit.
Completely agree.
It's just that I feel more and more when I basically let all the obstructions go. So this is not about receiving new codes to encode new habits in me. This is about receiving new codes to decode all the stuff that I've been cased in or encased in all my life, you know. And there will be people on here listening to that who will understand this. So this is about letting go. There's nothing more to learn. We need to let go of everything to find out what we've always been looking for, mate. And that's what I've said to you before. Everything you need to know is already within you. You just have to metaphorically take your head off, kick it away as far as you can, and just live from a heart-based approach. Right? And that's my suggestion to people. And you know what, mate? Everything that we've said on here may be bollocks, but it may be truth as well.
If it resonates with one person, Joe, that's all that matters. You know, and I'm glad that you sort of, you know, you talked about heavy drinking and, you know, being an actual alcoholic. As I've said, you know, if you are going out every weekend and getting pissed, I know for a fact, deep down the next morning, you know there's a problem. If you are going out every single week, I know that you know there's a problem, you know. But, you know, if you're sitting in and you're drinking on your own every single day, you know, there's a problem. There's a difference between the two, but the one and the same problem, I feel, you know. So it is what you're saying. It's just sort of opening up and saying, yeah, it's an issue. So I think, Joe, just before we sort of end it, if anyone is online that wants to ask a question to Joe or myself, now's the time. Well done, Natalie. And, you know, you don't have to ask, you know, you can ask through message after the interview if that's okay.
If people are going to message me, I mightn't be able to get back to them for some time because I'm sort of overloaded with stuff at the moment, but I'll do my best, you know.
I don't think so, Joe. Well, we'll leave it there, Joe. Listen, I love you to bits.
Same here, mate.
We'll do something soon. And thanks for doing the interview, Joe. I love you to bits, mate. Thanks
very much, Jay, and thanks for organising it, mate. And I'll hopefully see you in flesh soon. I'll give you the big.
Absolutely. See you soon, Joe.
See you soon.
Bye, mate.